Hi folks, in this video we're going to focus on some British knife makers who I have some experience with and who are making high quality bushcraft knives based in the UK. So this isn't a comprehensive video on every British knife maker, it is purely on the knives that I have in my collection and the experience I have of buying from these particular people. So to be clear, I'm not sponsored in this video. I bought every knife with my own money, and the type of knife that I like to buy that I'm interested in are well made by independent makers, and in this case they're all fairly local to me. So we'll start the story with this knife. This is one made by Ben Orford, and it is essentially a Woodlaw clone. It's a beautiful knife, and Ben Orford is probably one of the better known, or if not one of the best known knife makers in Britain. Very much focuses on bushcraft tools and knives. And I got this knife at least 16 years ago, if not more. And at that time, Ben Orford, was probably close to starting out. And I actually was given his phone number by someone who had one of his knives, phoned him up and specified what I wanted. I can probably tell that it's my most used knife, had it the longest. And right from when I first picked it up, it was an absolutely amazing knife. It felt beautiful in the hand, it was incredibly well made. Everything about it was just a joy. Now, it was 01 steel, had an English U handle, and the leather work was all done by his wife Lois. Now, at the time, I think this might have been an optional extra to have the fire steel, but I certainly got that. So the package as it is here was exactly how it arrived for me, and I have used it a lot. These days you can't just go and order and specify a knife. You pretty much buy what's available on his website. The demand's so high that the prices have also become inflated over time, and he makes what he would like to make and makes them available. Over the time since I bought this knife, to get an equivalent now is probably more than double the price, and is actually starting to put it out of the reach of just the average buyer, I would suggest. But it's an amazingly well made knife. I think all his work is very well respected for a good reason. They're lovely knives to hold, to use, incredible. He knows what he's doing, he uses them himself, so you can't go wrong. So this next knife is also a Woodlaw clone, and it's made by a small independent knife maker. I think he's based in the south of England somewhere, but it's a chap called Lee, and you can only get his stuff off Etsy, and he does also have an Instagram page. His attention to detail is incredible. He does all the work himself, the knife as well as the leather work, and it's absolutely beautifully made. 01 tool steel micarta handle, it's got nice liners. Now he does do a couple of other sizes, all bushcraft focused tools that he makes. They pretty much all have Scandi grinds that I've seen. So if you're after a Woodlaw clone, in my opinion, you can't go wrong with one of Lee's Stoney Path knives. So the next knife we're going to take a look at, I've actually featured before in a video, so there's more detail if you want to go and check it out. And I've featured two knives from this maker, and it is Rob Evans. And he's pretty well known on YouTube now, so most people will know about him. But this is the knife I'm going to talk through today, and it's the Kochanski Tribute knife. Let me just say, I have raved about this knife before, and I still stand by that opinion. Beautifully made. This is RWL steel. Micarta handle. I was able to specify the color of the liners and the handle, and it's just an amazingly well made knife. I love the little extended butt plate for strength on the back. Lanyard holes make it very versatile, and the 3mm blade makes it a very nice carving tool. Rob is an absolute stickler for blade geometry, so you know that when you get a knife from him, that blade is going to be super sharp and extremely well ground, perfect ground in fact. Now the other thing I did mention in both my previous videos about Rob is that sheaths are a work of art too, beautifully well made and incredibly tight fitting. For a leather sheath, he gets these molded to perfection, and right from the start these knives are really tight in the sheath. He has about 3 or 4 different models now you can get from him. This is the one I like the most. It's really a beautiful knife, but go check him out and you will not be disappointed with one of his knives. Now this one's a little bit different. It's not your typical Woodlaw clone. Now this one's from Field & Steel, which is a chap called Steve based up in Yorkshire. It's aimed at the more puukko designed blade as well as the handle shape. Now this one is called the Garcia Echo. The real key with this particular model and the way it's set up is a stainless steel G10 handle and a Kydex sheath, very focused on being able to be used in a more wet environment. Now certainly I think where Steve is, but definitely where I am, we do work in quite a wet environment. It's very wet and rainy here. I also sometimes go on canoeing trips, so to have a knife, a versatile knife that you can use in that environment is a real bonus. This is obviously a sculpted handle, make it better for grip in the wet. The lanyard hole is more like the sort of traditional puukko style, and the grind is quite high. It's slightly more like a saber grind than a Scandi grind. It's a bit of a hybrid, but it does work really well. Still has quite a robust tip, which is good. It does fit nicely in the hand. Totally different to your Coke bottle style that you get on a woodlaw, but it still feels very comfortable, quite versatile to move around as well. The Kydex sheath fits very well, clicks in nicely, and it's a nice small package. Now with Field and Steel, you actually contact Steve and you can specify what you're looking for. I'm not sure how much custom options he has, but certainly he has quite a few different models you can pick from, and I think you can possibly choose the handle material or color, etc. But go have a look, and if you're looking for something that's quite robust for sort of wet weather, then definitely check this one out. Lovely knife. So this last one we'll take a look at is actually a knife designed by Gary Wines. Now I have featured a Gary Wines designed knife before. It was the one made by LT Wright. This one actually was ordered directly from Gary Wines, but at that time he was getting them made in batches by makers in Sheffield, so it's made in the UK. Now at the time when I ordered this, I actually phoned him up and had a chat to him, and he was an incredibly nice chap, very gracious gentleman. I think he spent his career in the military, and so he had a lot of experience of knives that were used in the field, and that's how he came up with this particular design and some others. Now this one is what he calls his bushcraft style knife. The one from LT Wright is the standard size. This is a smaller version, and there's also a third one which is larger than the traditional 4-inch blade. In this case it came with a rosewood handle and 01 steel. Now I think the design is reminiscent of the French trading knives, have a sort of more broomstick handle. I love the LT Wright version, and this smaller one also was such a lovely shape and versatile utility knife, and that's what attracted me to this one. Now I'm not sure if Gary Wines still is producing knives. I know the LT Wright version is no longer made, and when I spoke to Gary about that, he wasn't sure why they'd stopped making his knife. He was getting this made up in batches in Sheffield, but I've not managed to locate his current website, so I don't know if he's still selling these knives or not. But if anybody does, please put a comment below and we can see if we can still get these knives. I do like them, they're very nicely made. I love the design, so I think it's worth seeking out if you can. Now the sheath is made a bit like the LT Wright version, where they're made in batches and they're not form fitted, but it's nice leather, fully functional, but could do with a bit of form fitting. It is quite loose. Now the fire steel matches this knife perfectly. It's also rosewood and brass, but I actually bought this separately, and I got it from Lee at Stoney Path. He was selling them on his Etsy shop, and I realized it would fit this knife perfectly, so that's why I got it. And it does work well with this particular sheath and knife. Now if you ask me which is my preference, it's a pretty tough question because they're all really well made and I would recommend any one of them. But if I had to pick one or two, if I was going on a canoeing trip or any sort of wet weather, I think this Garcia Echo by Field and Steel is a really good option. It's just set up for resisting wet weather, and I really like that about that knife. Probably my favorite out of all of these would be this one by Rob Evans. Everything about it's been well made, extremely well thought out. I like the fact that it's his own design. It's not a copy, it's something he's come up with himself. So that's probably the one I'd grab out of these if I had to. So I'll put links to these knives below in the description, and if anyone's interested, go check them out. So folks, I hope that was of interest to you. Hopefully you can go and support some of these makers, because that's the goal of this video. So hopefully you enjoyed it, and I'll see you next time. Thanks for watching.